To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can be seated and we will begin our commission meeting. We start this morning with two presentations. The first one is the Office of Innovation and Strategy update by Deputy City Manager Emily Colon.
I gotta give it a good push.
And congratulations to you, ma'am, on this new role, by the way.
Okay, thank you. So Emily Colon, and I'm gonna give you guys an update on the Office of Innovation and Strategy. So we're gonna go over a brief update of what has happened since OIS was created last summer, meet the OIS team, talk about what innovation and strategy is, share some creative ideas from our citizens, and then afterwards celebrate the GFOA award with OIS and our finance team. First, let's talk about how we got here. The office, formerly known as OMB, our Office of Management and Budget, was, well, let's talk about prior to Tony Delgado's retirement as city manager, the CMO team was evaluating the needs of this group that provides for our city team with the services they provided. When Sean became the city manager, we started to get serious about making changes to the group. And last summer, Sean redefined it as OIS and gave me the keys to drive. Through our PMF process, which we've talked about, our program modification form, I'm trying to remember the acronyms for you guys. Through the PMF process, we structured it into what made better sense for what we wanted this group to do. And over the fall, winter, and just the spring, we found the right people to help take us there. So of the 5 team members I'm about to introduce you to, 3 of them were a part of that, were brand new to the office. So let me show you who those team members are. Hopefully there are some familiar faces in the group. I'm gonna go left to right. So on the left is Barb Doster-Bailey, Morgan Cumbos next to her, Angel Davis in the middle, Stephanie Passy, and then Eugenia Gainers is on the end. We're working hard with this group to build a reputation of being department advocates and adding value to our departments that we serve. Now let's talk a little bit and break down the definition of innovation and strategy in this group. Innovation, so it's a fancy title, right? So we want to tell you what we're actually doing. Innovation, how do we know this is the best way? So innovation is continuous improvement and breakthrough performance. We want both. So new ideas, processes, techniques, technologies, or even business models that are either new or new to that particular application. We're working hard to create a supportive environment and a systematic process for identifying the strategic opportunities in the pursuit of intelligent risk-taking. Sometimes it's easier to see innovation in products, but sometimes more impactful are those changes to the processes and to the business model. So, and if an issue occurs, we don't want to just bounce back. We want to be agile to bounce forward. So a real life example that we've all lived together, of course, is the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we often think about what life was like before COVID-19. And so if we want to bounce back, we would be bouncing back to the life it was. But through COVID-19, we learned a bunch. And so that's why we're trying to bounce forward. So an example of that in innovation and to make our business processes better. So the goal is innovation system as a part of our organization's DNA, and it starts with this group. Incremental changes to a lasting oh my goodness, an organic impact. I didn't finish my coffee, and perhaps I should have.
It's okay. It adds humanness.
So let's talk about that. Oh, wait, you know what? So the little bullets underneath, so we're talking about internal and external innovation. The PMF process, again, Sean has talked about this at the strategic planning retreat. The budget book, we're working hard to revamp our budget book to make it more citizen-friendly while still meeting the criteria. Adding grants management to the group. The next big thing idea, Sean has talked about at department head meetings, where we want to keep department heads abreast of what's going on and what technology, usually it's technology, is out there, so that our head's not in the sand and we're still being open to ideas of how other people are doing it. And then, of course, the smart city discussion. So we could blow our whole budget on smart city initiatives, and it's really cool, but what makes sense for Lakeland and what problems are we actually trying to solve, and then looking for the technology to help aid that. Okay, now to showcase some of our citizens' input into the innovation. So when Sean became city manager, you'll remember, I think maybe last fall, communications and our DO-IT, Department of Information and Technology department, worked with him for the Submit an Idea campaign. So here's the plug. It's still on the city's website, and we're still getting ideas. Here are 2 ideas that citizens have engaged with us. They were their ideas that have been implemented. So the dog paw sign by Court Jones and the waterfowl feeders by Donna Caracappa were different solutions that citizens brought to us that we were able to implement. Citizens, so what also has come to light is citizens don't totally understand our scope of services or what we can control. So there's been plenty of submissions that are great ideas, just the city doesn't necessarily have control over. So things that perhaps involve FDOT, or Florida Department of Transportation, that we necessarily can't control, or they like a particular store that they want on a particular corner. Well, we can, appreciate the sentiments. We don't necessarily have control to make that happen. So here are 2 ideas, and just a reminder that it's not a complaint mechanism, but it's a solution-oriented communication tool for our citizens to engage and help be a part of the solution with us. Now on to strategy. In order to get to where we intend, we have to know where we're going. And that's the most important thing to remember about strategy. In order for an organization to sustain success, they must have a vision both now and in the future, balancing short and long-term goals. So this part you all have been a part of, us revamping the strategic planning process to be more intentional and long-term focused. So we're looking at the commission to set the destination, and our city team is figuring out the GPS routes to make sure that we can get there on time and in budget. The goal here is to infiltrate strategy into every level of the organization, building loyalty and highly engaged teams so that each team member of the city staff knows what they are and they're part of something bigger than themselves. And if you remember nothing else from my presentation, just remember, we'll challenge the status quo together.
Good. Questions or comments by commissioners? Commissioner McLeod?
Thank you, Emily, for the update and presentation. Thinking about your department and how you interact throughout the city with employees. So how do you foster an environment where our employees have ideas and maybe it's a change to a process? I'm sure some of that just happens within the department, but how does that connect to your group, your team, and the things you're trying to do?
So that's a great question. And so when I talk about making the systematic processes in place, the communication feedback loop is part of that, right? So first of all, we're getting our department, our division out there. So the OIS team is a division of the city manager's office, and we're constantly inserting them into groups and into conversations so that they're out there and they're known within the city. And it thinks just over time, just creating that systematic process so it happens more naturally.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Commissioner Reed?
Thank you. Good morning.
Hi.
In reference to strategies, have you had any luck with getting greater participation in our citizens survey?
Well,
What are we doing to enhance that?
Thank you for asking. So we are in the process right now of revamping our citizens survey. We've talked to a few different outside vendors to help take a look at that. Some of the people, they do this for a living. And we are working on that, and we hope to bring you some exciting results next strategic planning retreat. And just, we are gonna do it, we're changing the timeline too, because that's always been something of concern for us, the citizens, and for you all. So we're working, we haven't set the dates yet, but we're working on when we survey the citizens and then aggregating the results and getting them to you all ahead of the retreat so that you have time to digest them before we meet in February at the retreat.
Thank you.
Yep, so that is
And will that also work on broadening the number of participants as part of that effort?
So with the, statistically speaking, so we want it to be representative of our population, and we want it to be, everybody has the opportunity to participate. So we have done tremendous amount of outreach in the past that will still continue, just being more intentional about those, the different populations that aren't necessarily seeing it, right? So who's not online, who is not on social media, who's, doesn't watch commission meetings. We want to try to reach out to make sure that they have the opportunity.
Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've answered already one of my questions that I think was the one that Commissioner Reed was talking about with the survey for our citizens. But certainly, want to know how it is playing into what we've been asking about. I think Commissioner Madden has kind of led the charge with some things to do with our innovative district, we call it, as out northeast of around Florida Polytechnic and that kind of thing. Will you all be part of that particular kind of movement to help support what could not happen, how we can make sure that becomes what we've been asking them to have happen there on that particular scope of property? Would that be part of that? Would you be doing that as well?
Yes and no. So it's a team approach and what makes the most sense for each activity. So OIS helps facilitate conversations.
Yes.
So for instance, when we get to submit an idea from citizens, this group of 5 doesn't necessarily have all the subject matter expertise in the cities, but they're connected. And with the communications department, then we go to our subject matter expertise in the departments and engage them. So similar to the innovation district, OIS won't be leading the charge. We'll work with our friends in the economic development, community and economic development department, but help facilitate the conversations and stay engaged from the OIS perspective.
So the
Yes.
departments all will interchange and interrelate to help support whatever innovative ideas that you may pick up
Yes.
from different citizens or
Right.
groups of
Yep. So
people or whatever, right?
Yep. Look at best practices from other cities, and
Yes.
we're not just looking at best practices from other municipalities. We're also looking in private sector too, because business process is not specific to a sector.
Yeah.
Whatever is performance excellence is performance excellence.
Well, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Reed and then Madden.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Again, I failed to ask this portion earlier, but, as the innovation component, are we doing anything particularly with Florida Polytechnical University to, I know that's their innovation area. Is there anything going on out there particularly you know about?
Yes, Commissioner Walker, the conversation I just had with him as it relates to
Well,
that.
I'm-
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, we're just starting.
And Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Emily. I'm excited for you to be able to present. I know you've been in that in a new role, and so it's excited to see a little momentum, forming. 2 questions. One is with regard to communication, and the other is with regard to grants. So on the first question, with the departments, when I think about smart city applications, I think about our smart meters and how, Lakeland Electric is making their trajectory of progress, and then water is making a different, trajectory of progress. Will you be the point person from the manager's office to be able to get communications back and forth, to get updates on those actual smart city integrations from the departments? Like, will you be a liaison so that we can make sure? I know that you're encouraging all kinds of best practices and all kinds of engagement within the different departments to do things better. I just feel like we're in a phenomenal time. I think that the Biden administration said that this was a once-in-a-generation investment in infrastructure that's coming. And so to me, I feel like it's a unique time. I know you mentioned the cost, but that every department should be seeking ways in which we could take hold of some of these opportunities that we haven't had to get smart meters all throughout our water system, to be able to find some of these efficiencies that we couldn't maybe afford when we didn't have a once-in-a-generational opportunity. So that is the communication among the departments. Like, are you hearing from Scott Bishop in the emerging technology to be able to hear what he's thinking about with solar panels and green hydrogen? Are you the one that's going to be talking about the smart trash bins and the solar trash bins downtown with LDDA? So first is like the communication and the liaison side. And then secondly, are we going to be able to have like a grants writer or someone to participate? So when you hear these things are emerging or these projects are shovel ready, we have the grant writer on the ready to take advantage of it.
Okay, so great questions. So first, about the communications and the smart city initiatives, we have an internal cross-departmental team that meets probably about once a month, and Angel Davis sits on it from the OIS group with us. So that is where you'll see Scott Bishop, Oscar Torres, all the different city team cross-departmental to talk about what smart city initiatives are out there. Smart city initiatives is also very trendy and highly marketed to municipalities. So we try not to get wrapped around, oh my gosh, that's a really cool idea, but what problem is that solving for us in Lakeland? And that's kind of how we focus on where to concentrate funding. What is the solution or what is the problem we're trying to solve? And then as far as grant writing, so Eugenia Gaynor is the last person on your slide. Her title is grant writer. Oops. So there she is in purple. So Eugenia Gaynor is our grants writer. So right now she is, the city of Lakeland got plenty of grants and continues to get plenty of grants without necessarily having a grants writer. However, we're looking to focus our concentration and centralize our services. We're going to get a grant management software tool to make sure that we are going after every possible opportunity that we can and work across the departments. So yes, that is part of our new initiative in OIS.
So Commissioner Madden, your concern is that citizens know and that our staff knows and that we as a commission know there's a place to funnel.
And there's a window of
Right.
opportunity that's not always open.
Right.
And that we're in that. Okay, or about to be.
Yes.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I may, just real quick, great job, Emily. Good questions from the commission and great responses from Ms. Colon. She mentioned my name there way too many times. I had an idea of transforming OMB to OIS, but Emily has done all of the work in managing that process along with the team that she works with, and in particular Stephanie and Barb, who were both part of OMB, who have lived through this transformation process. And the thing that Emily said there that struck me the most is things that you've heard us talk about, which is incremental change. And so it will be incremental, but over time, OIS will help transform this organization to be more strategic and more innovative. So great job, team, and Emily, thank you.
There's some great players on that team to do that.
Fantastic.
That's great. Okay, next we are going to, am I on this? We're going to have the Governmental Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Award. And this is an award that, come on up team, all of you. This is an award that has been earned, let me pull out the plaque, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, right? 14. Go beyond the plaque, so come on, all the way across, all the way across. This is the team responsible for that. Who's going to hold this? It's heavy. Takes a man. Yeah, no. I know. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Here you go. Thank you. All right, and so let me read this while this team is here, because this is a substantially important to our city and a substantial recognition of awards that we have gotten 14 years. Both the OIS team and finance team are to credit for their hard work for the creation of the budget book. The GFOA established the Distinguished Budget Presentation Awards Program in 1984 to encourage and assist state and local governments to prepare budget documents of the very highest quality that reflect both the guidelines established by the National Advisory Council on State and Local Budgeting and the GFOA's best practices on budgeting, and then to recognize individual governments that succeed in achieving that goal. And I will tell you, as a commission, when we work on the budgeting process, the information that we are given, the way it is parsed, the succinctness of it, our ability to ask questions, to get to answers is marvelous. To earn recognition, budget documents must meet program criteria and excel as a policy document, financial plan, operations guide, and communication tool. So we want to give a huge round of applause to this team that makes that happen. And watch your tape there. Yes, okay. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that'll work. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1.
Thank you. Is there anyone on this team that would like to make a statement at all about the process? All right, then just keep up the great work. Thank you. Appreciate it. The next thing that's actually not reflected on your agenda is, because we had to kind of keep this quiet to get it done. But each year, the Florida City County Management Association recognizes leaders in their profession that have demonstrated professionalism. And there's an award, If You Care, You Do. And that is for a service above and beyond the call of duty. So I need Sean Trouse to come out front here for this one, because he won this. And this year, our city manager received the If You Care, You Do award for the association's board of directors for going above and beyond the call of duty on a special project or program. Sean received this recognition for his many years of service on the Awards and Scholarships Committee, which is where he has focused a lot of his time, for his initiative in creating a Veterans Emerging Leader Scholarship. This scholarship is awarded to active military service members preparing to transition to a career in local government management or veterans presently serving as entry-level city and county management staff and interested in continuing their professional development as local government administrators. This is the second year the Veterans Scholarship was awarded. The first year was Larry Wheatcraft Jr., who has parents that live right here in Lakeland. Sean is the one who genesised this whole process, so we want to make sure that you are recognized for it, and you might want to make some comments about it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The real credit goes to the association that Emily and I and others in our organization are so fortunate to be a part of, and to now be able to assist veterans who are transferring out of the military or are already working in local governments, to give them a scholarship that helps propel their careers was just a great move by the association. So while I'm getting the recognition, it was really our association that made this happen, and just it was awesome that our very first recipient last year had parents who live here in Lakeland, and that individual is now working over on the East Coast in a local government over there. So it's been successful. So thank you, sir.
Three, two, one.
All right, this is so fun. These are the fun things. Next, I'm going to ask Tim Sizemore, who is Beacon Hill Fellowship pastor, and he's going to come up as a representative of Polk Pride, and I am reading our Juneteenth LGBTQ Pride Month proclamation. Whereas Lakeland, Florida is a community of diverse cultures, races, creeds, genders, and sexual identities which work together toward peace and understanding. And whereas lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender residents, students, employees, and business owners within Lakeland contribute to this vibrant, innovative, culturally inclusive community and its diversity. And whereas various advancements exist respecting equal rights and protections for all citizens, including the LGBTQ community throughout the state of Florida and the United States, and whereas members of the LGBTQ communities face discrimination based on their innate status, which sometimes results in human tragedy, loss of life, community isolation, or abuse, and whereas PFLAG of Polk County envisions a community where diversity and all people are respected, valued, and affirmed inclusive of their sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression, and whereas the Lakeland Youth Alliance provides a safe place for LGBTQ youth and their straight allies within Polk County, and whereas the wide diversity of Lakeland Polk Pride, PFLAG of Polk County, and the Lakeland Youth Alliance conduct various cultural, educational, and entertainment activities to focus attention on the importance of acceptance and respect for diversity. Now therefore, I, H. William Mutz, Mayor of the City of Lakeland, recognize June 2022 as LGBTQ Pride Month in the City of Lakeland in honor of freedom from prejudice and bias in any form, and in recognition of those members of our community who promote equal treatment for all citizens, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, race, color, creed, ethnic origin, or religion, and have hereby set my seal. Thank you. And this is, if you want to make any comments?
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. I'm here to accept this in behalf of Polk Pride, and I just want to say thank you, Mayor Mutz, as well as the commission for this proclamation. I, as a pastor in this community, I think is very important, and I commend your work on making sure we have an inclusive community for all of our fellow citizens. And if you were out this past Saturday in the park at Munn Park, you saw the crowd of people there. So it's not only good for our fellow citizens, it's also good for business to be warm and welcoming and inclusive as well. So thank you for this proclamation, and thank you all.
Thank you for accepting it. There you go. We'll take a picture. right, that brings us to business at hand. And by the way, we appreciate our City Assistant Attorney, Ramona Siriani, being here in lieu of City Attorney Davis, who has had a chance to begin his vacation, which is wonderful for the summer. We are going to begin with the committee reports, and the first is Real Estate and Transportation Committee, and that is Commissioner Music, who is its chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. The Real Estate and Transportation Committee met on June 17th. The Real Estate and Transportation Committee met in the City Commission conference room. Commissioner Mike Music, Chair, and Commissioner Chad McClown and Bill Reed, members, were present. Mayor Bill Mutz and Commissioner Philip Walker were also present along with staff. Commissioner Mike Music called the meeting to order at 8:15 a.m. The topic was a parking license agreement with Farm Credit of Central Florida, ACA. This proposed parking license agreement with Farm Credit of Central Florida, ACA, known as Farm Credit, was for 13 rooftop parking spaces in the Heritage Garage located at 227 South Kentucky Avenue. While Farm Credit currently rents parking spots located on the first floor of the Heritage Garage, they are owned by Heritage Plaza on a month-to-month basis. It is now seeking to rent parking spaces owned by the Lakeland Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA, on a longer-term basis. Pursuant to the agreement, Farm Credit will lease spaces at a rate of $50 per space per month, excluding applicable taxes. This rental rate is consistent with the current market rate being charged for garage rooftop spaces at Heritage Garage. The initial term of this agreement shall be for a period of 5 years, effective July 1st, 2022, subject to approval by the City Commission acting as the CRA. This agreement also contains 2 additional 5-year renewal options upon mutual written agreement by the parties. The $50 per space per month lease rate is subject to an annual adjustment based on the Consumer Price Index, CPI, during the initial term and for any renewal options exercised. However, the CPI will adjust a minimum of 2% annually, but never greater than 4% annually. This agreement includes a provision that enables the CRA to terminate the agreement upon 180 days prior written notice in the event that the Heritage Garage is transferred to a private party through sale or redevelopment of the site. Upon such an occurrence, the CRA would provide alternate parking to the extent it is available in reasonable proximity to the Farm Credit's property and to enter into a new parking agreement. Staff recommended that the City Commission, acting as the CRA, approve the parking license agreement with Farm Credit and authorize the appropriate CRA officials to execute the parking license agreement and all necessary corresponding documents. Action taken was Commissioner Chad McCloud moved to approve the parking agreement. Commissioner Bill Reed seconded, and the motion carried unanimously. The committee adjourned at 8:18 a.m.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
And a second? Motion to approve in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Any other questions or comments? Anybody from, questions or comments from the audience at all? All right, this is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. All right, that then brings us to the approval of the consent agenda, which is denoted by the items in asterisk, which include our minutes as well as item 6C4, which is asterisk on the second page of your agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Discussion by, or questions by commissioners? Any by the audience? Seeing none, a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. That unanimously passes. We have no requests to appear from the general public, prearranged, and equalization hearing we do not have at this time this month. So we now move to item 3A1, public hearings, ordinances, second reading. City Assistant Attorney Siriani will take that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Commission, we have several ordinances for second reading this morning that will require a public hearing. The first one is proposed ordinance number 22-022, an ordinance relating to the City of Lakeland Employees Pension and Retirement System, amending Section 21, definitions of Article 2 of Division 2 of the Charter of the City of Lakeland, Florida, making findings, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Motion approval.
Motion to approve in a second. And a second by Commissioner McLeod. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussions or questions from the audience? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Unanimously passes. Item 2.
Proposed ordinance number 22-023, an ordinance of the City of Lakeland amending Chapter 62, Law Enforcement, Article 2, Police Officers Benefits, Division 3, City of Lakeland Police Officers Retirement System of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lakeland, amending Section 62-55, Contributions, amending Section 62-81, Actuarial Gain Sharing Account, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Move approval.
Motion to approve and
Second.
second by Commissioner McLeod. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or question by the audience? You're very, very compliant today. Commissioner McLeod, this
Aye.
is roll call.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Unanimously passes. Item 3.
Proposed ordinance number 22-024, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, approving a conditional use to allow for the conversion of a group home into a two-family residential dwelling on property located at 722 East Myrtle Street, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
And a second. And discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or questions by the audience? Seeing none, Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Unanimously passes.
Proposed ordinance number 22-025, an ordinance relating to local government comprehensive planning, making findings, providing for small-scale amendment, number LUS 22-001, to a certain portion of the future land use map of the Lakeland Comprehensive Plan, Our Community 2030, changing the future land use designation on approximately 2.14 acres located at 1141 East Memorial Boulevard from Mixed Commercial Corridor MCC to Community Activities Center CAC, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Move approval.
A motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Discussion by commissioners. Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. So I know that Commissioner Walker has been excited about the possibility of this, and I thought if you could share, just kind of from a historical perspective, you've been here the longest, so when we see, development occurring, especially when it kind of builds some momentum in an area that has not had as much development in the past, that is particularly exciting. So this, could you elaborate on just sort of the history and how you've looked at this and were excited when this came forward as an opportunity, and some other things in that area are also kind of gaining some traction to really improve upon that memorial corridor?
Well, thank you, my dear colleague. But certainly appreciate what the momentum would be. I think by this particular project coming out of the ground to support that area of the city that we need redevelopment. As we all know, I can remember when I was a young boy growing up here in Lakeland, East Memorial Boulevard was the main thoroughfare. That's where everybody went to get whatever, McDonald's, Steak and Shake, when all the different places, restaurants that were there, even further south and further east was the first Red Lobster, and, in the Red Lobster chain and all that. So just to see that particular corridor, as it kind of had transitioned in some situations, coming back now with the new town center that's being there, what we call the old Searstown location, the Lakes Church right there where, Church of the Mall is. And then when I saw this, I thought, oh my, this space has been, this location's been vacant and laying there for so many years. And now to have something like this coming out of the ground to support, I think, other things that will help bring about more, business to that community and revitalization movement, I thought it was a win-win. So thank you for letting me even share that.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. There again, this is a neighborhood that I live on in that general area. And of course, the neighborhood is not opposed to this. And of course, it has limited access, which I think this is a good use for it.
Yes.
In addition, we're trying to look at East Memorial Boulevard as a strategic plan, trying to do some development in that area. And also in light of the new development that's going to come along East Parker Drive and Lake Lars Parson, some of the smallest lots we've ever approved. And I think they're going to need some place to store their miscellaneous items. And so they're going to hardly want to endorse this project as well. Incidentally, I do see our owner is here, Mr. Tom Mims, and I would like to thank him. We're going to get to benefit from his graciousness in our Red, White, and Kaboom coming up in the near future, and hope everybody comes out for the 4th of July. Fireworks that he so graciously has taken care of in the last couple of years. I hope he continues to do that in the future.
It was a nice segue, sir.
Anyway,
Commissioner
I'm
Music.
done.
Yeah, and I just want to bounce a little bit off of that having seen the renderings that they have, and that there's 3,000 feet of, commercial space as well.
Yes.
Which will add to that community. So yeah, I mean, what a wonderful use for a big open lot for a lot of years. So,
Yes.
good job.
With a growing population.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
coming.
So.
Great. Any other comments? Any other questions or comments from the audience? Anyone in the audience?
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Shelton
Morning.
Rice. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Peterson & Myers, address 225 East Lemon Street, Lakeland, Florida. Today, I'm here on behalf of RCG Ventures and Stein Investments regarding a request that it sounds like this commission is already very familiar with, proposing a self-storage facility on the site. As you've already identified, Mr. Mims, the property owner, is here as well. We have a few representatives here to speak about the project if you have any specific questions about their operation, how they function. This is a Class A type self-storage facility. There's a lot of demand for this in Lakeland. You've seen a lot of projects, but we're excited as well as Commissioner Walker that this area is seeing a lot of redevelopment. This is one of a couple of projects that I'm aware of that will be coming before the City Commission, hopefully in the near future in this area. So we're excited about this area. We think this is appropriate. This is certainly could be defined as infill development, looking at all the development that exists around it. We believe it's appropriate. I have a big presentation I could go through, but I'll be glad to spare you that if you don't have any questions or you wouldn't like to see it. So having said that, we're here. We appreciate your time. We'd ask for a favorable vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? All right, this is a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Commissioner McLeod.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Unanimously passes. Excellent. Next.
Proposed ordinance number 22-026, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, amending ordinance 3524 as amended to provide for a modification to planned unit development zoning to allow for a 3-story, 102,648 square foot commercial building consisting of a 99,648 square foot mini warehouse self-storage facility with 3,000 square feet of ground floor retail uses on approximately 2.14 acres located at 1141 East Memorial Boulevard, providing conditions, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Move to approve.
Second.
Approved, and a second by Commissioner Music.
Nope, Commissioner.
Walker, sorry.
Not that I wouldn't have, but he did.
Commissioner Walker.
That's my brother from another mother.
All right, discussion by commissioners.
I do, and a question I probably should have asked for, when was this last occupied and what was it? I mean, as long as I can remember, it's not been anything. Do you have information back that far?
I can remember Ohio Patrol Station.
The Jurassic Park question.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I apologize for not asking that earlier.
No problem. Shelton Rice, for the record, again, from Peterson & Myers. To answer your question, it was relatively recently used as manufactured home sales. That may have been a decade or two ago. Before that, it did have a prior life. I don't know the details of that. It sounds like Commissioner Walker may have some.
I remember the Ohio Patrol Station was there for years.
Yes,
As
sir.
growing up in Lakeland as a young lad.
That was before my time.
Well,
so-
excuse me?
Now. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't remember a building being, that's what I was curious about.
Any other comments or questions? Any comments or questions again from the audience on this? This is part 2 of the last resolution. All right, seeing none, Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Unanimously passes. Congratulations. We'll look forward to seeing that go. What is the timing on that, by the way, do you think?
Sorry?
What will the timing be on that, roughly in terms?
Approximately 12 months.
12 months, about a year.
Build and have it fully. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, B1.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have the proposed one-year action plan and projected use of funds, 48th year of the Cdbg and 28th year of home. This will not require action by the City Commission, but it does require a public hearing, and a presentation will be provided by Mike Smith, our Housing Programs Manager, who will do a presentation.
Excellent, Mr. Smith. Oh, you're already on deck. Okay, great, sir. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Michael Smith, the Housing Program Manager for the City of Lakeland. This is our public hearing for this Community Development Block Grant, which is also referred to as CDBG, and Home Investment Partnership Program for our one-year action plan and proposed use of funds for the program year 2022-2023. Lakeland's an entitlement community, which means we're allocated funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development based on the number of the population and number of low-income persons. Each entitlement is required to submit a 5-year consolidated plan, which we submitted last year for the City of Lakeland, and then each year an annual action plan for the proposed use of our funds. On the slide now, we see the calendar. So we've had 2 public meetings already, Monday, May 9th, and Thursday, May 26th. This is the first public hearing on our 2022-23 one-year action plan. We will come back to the Commission July 18th for the second hearing and ask for approval of the action plan at that time. Currently, the plan is posted on the City of Lakeland's website and for a review and comment period of 30 days. The program year runs from October 1st through September 30th, and we will come back for, like I said, for the approval in July and then present the approved plan to HUD by August 15th. CDBG and Home are 2 separate programs that work together. CDBG funds were first offered in 1975, represents about 70% of the funding that we use from those 2 grants. Home was first funded in 1992 and represents about 30% of the funds that we use for the entitlements. Both are administered by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Basic activities that are eligible for CDBG include housing rehab, code enforcement, rental assistance, public facilities and improvements, and public infrastructure. We have a 20% administrative cap for costs and a 15% minimum or cap for public services. Some of the ineligible activities include acquisitions, construction, reconstruction of buildings for the general conduct of government, political activities, certain income payments, and construction of new housing by units of general local government. For the federal home program, basic eligible activities include housing rehabilitation, down payment assistance, rental construction, and community housing development organization, which we refer to as CHODO. There's a 10% administrative cap, and a minimum 15% is used for that CHODO development. Ineligible activities include tenant-based rental assistance, non-federal matching contributions, acquisition of property owned by participating jurisdictions, monitoring, servicing, and organization fees in home-assisted projects. The next slide represents our current fiscal year budget, and that will run through the end of September. And we'll go into a little bit more detail of how we utilize the funds in this current cycle. Like I previously mentioned, we use 15% for public service activities. We had 7 nonprofit agencies receive funding through the CDBG grant for this current fiscal year. An additional amount was also utilized for programs that were administered through the Parks and Rec Department. There were also 13 nonprofit groups that received funding through the city's general funds program. And then the slide currently just shows some of the nonprofit agencies that have taken advantage of the public service grants that the city has to offer. During the calendar year so far to date, we've had 13 rehab projects. We've assisted 26 people. And these vary from minor rehab to reconstruction, where we completely tear down the house and completely rebuild the home. We also assisted 8 homes through the home purchase program with down payment assistance and closing costs, and that totaled assistance of 20 people. and that's through the to date, which we still have 3 months left in this fiscal cycle. The next few slides are going to be some examples of the work that we've done. This one was a home that was in such bad disrepair that we had to tear it down and rebuild it. So the next slide is the finished product of the brand new home that was rebuilt. The next one is a major rehab. We redid the kitchen. And there's some other additional slides showing some other rehabilitation work that we've done through those programs. Another source of funding that we received in this fiscal cycle was the continuation of COVID funding. And we have so to date through our CARE program been able to assist over 1,100 people at 443 units, and also just under 200 people through the mortgage and utility assistance program. We still have funding for the CARE program, and we will continue to carry that through the CARE program through our CV3 funds through September 30th of 2023. And we, I believe to date, have about $200,000 remaining in that budget. We also received funding and were able to assist some other public service agencies through the COVID funds. Lakeland Volunteers in Medicine, Peace River, Florida Rural Legal Services, and Talbot House all received some additional funding for public services through the COVID Relief Act. The Housing Division staff also participates with other affordable housing actions through homeless providers through the Continuum Care application, which brings approximately $1.2 million to the Polk County area. The city contributes to other affordable housing projects and programs through federal, state, and local funds. We offer reimbursement or waiver of impact fees for qualified low-income housing development. The city also has an infill land bank program, which provides lots to builders to build houses that will be for sale to low to moderate income buyers. And currently we have 4 homes completed through that program that have been sold to low-income buyers, 15 additional under construction, and a total of 20 that have been sold, with 20 more coming under contract soon. And we plan on having a second round of that program coming out, hopefully in the middle of July to end of July. The next couple slides are some examples of the work that we did through the infill land bank program. That was the first homeowner that moved into a home. The next slide shows a couple of multifamily projects that utilized a local area contribution to receive a larger fund to build the construction of low-income housing. So we have Swan Lake and Twin Lakes, 2 of those projects. So that was a summary of what we've currently done with our funding for this fiscal year. And now I'm going to propose what our funding budget will be for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Our funding from Cdbg will be $907,548. Home will receive $430,231. We're projecting about a $400,000 carryover, $2,500 of program income from Cdbg, and about $20,000 of program income from home. And those funds come to us when something sells that doesn't meet the requirement. They pay the money back to us, and we put that back into the pot for future projects. The total funding requested for housing programs, or proposed for the housing programs through the Cdbg and Home Action Plan, will be $1.6 million. That includes $68,000 for code enforcement and $1.6 million for affordable housing projects. The CRA has also committed funding for rental construction, home purchase assistance, and rehab programs as well. Community Housing and Planning Division issued a request for proposals for public service grants in February 2022. We received applications from 29 nonprofit agencies totaling about $705,000 in requests. During this process, we have gone through a review and selection committee through the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee and proposed funding awards to these 10 agencies that you see on the slide there. It's about a total of just over $80,000. And there's an additional $55,000 that goes towards programs for parks and recreation, for a total of about $136,000 of public service grants for the 2022-2023 year. There's also an additional 14 agencies that we're proposing for general funds from the City of Lakeland that we'll bring at a future commission meeting. In addition to the CDBG and home funding that we get as an allocation from HUD, we've also received Home American Rescue Plan funding in the amount of $1.4 million. We're currently working on an RFP that will make available for development $1.25 million for a developer to build multifamily units with that funding. Right now that's going through the review process. We're hoping to launch that in July as well. On the slide, we have a maximum of $500,000 per development. We're looking at possibly changing that. I just want to make you aware of that. But there will be a total of $1.25 million available for development of affordable multifamily housing. This next slide summarizes kind of over the last 10 years how the funding has gone for us. CDBG and home have been fairly consistent, up and down a little bit. The SHIP funding we also receive recently has began to increase, and you can see on the last part of that slide, last year we received just over $600,000. I'm happy to announce that we did receive recently the amount that we'll get this year for the 2022-23 fiscal year, and that amount's going to be over $1.1 million. So the state has recognized that affordable housing is a key issue, and we look forward to putting that money to good use. The City of Lakeland's Housing Division does business in accordance with the Federal Fair Housing Law, which prohibits discrimination against any person because of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin. Anyone that feels they've been discriminated against may file a complaint, the form of which is located on the housing website under the subject of fair housing. And at this time, I will stand for any questions that you may have.
Questions from commissioners. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. Again, I'm familiar with most of these organizations. What is the Wilson House?
Wilson House is a organization that assists with folks that are coming out of prison, and it's kind of a halfway house. They have a program that they help them with, recovering and getting back into the community.
Thank you. And again, we probably need to beef up the utility assistance payment for next year. I think it's going to be challenging for all of us coming up, but hopefully we have enough to assist enough people to go and progress that. So.
Yeah, and with our care program that's still open, we're still able to assist those that have been impacted by COVID. The amount of requests we've gotten has trickled down because it does have to have a COVID impact for them to be qualified for the funding. But we do have about $200,000 left to expend by the end of September.
Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Smith, thank you for the presentation. Now, I just don't recall it, and you probably shared it at the meeting when it was held at Coleman Bush here a few weeks back. Go back to the slide with the ARPA money for affordable housing.
So the home ARP money that's a different funding than the ARPA funding. There's an additional.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that.
So home ARP is a completely separate.
American Rescue Plan money, that's different.
Right, this is different. I mean, this comes directly from home. It has different restrictions. Some of the restrictions that are a little bit different is the home ARP money. The agency that uses it has to coordinate through the continuum of care application program. Mm-hmm. So they would, the residents that move into it would have gone through the Homeless Coalition and utilize their list of applicants that they have there.
And may not reoccur.
Right, so it's a little bit different.
Is that time deadline for those funds to be spent?
Yeah, there is a time deadline. Those ones, I believe we have 5 years from when they put that first out. So we're looking to get that out. It's going through the review period.
Yes.
So we're looking to get that RFP out, but we're trying to time it with the Florida Housing Finance Corporation's grants that they put out so that they can utilize our local government contribution to try to get a larger award from Florida Housing Finance Corporation.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Music.
On your, and I apologize if you covered this, on your 22-23 slide that was your budget for the next year, you had a carryover of $400,000. Why such a large amount of carryover?
So for CDBG, the way that we utilize those funds, you're allowed to have 1.5 times your allocation amount at the end of that year. So we're spending money from a year to 2 years previously. It just, the projects take that long
Not
to
catching up.
That's just how long it takes to go through it. And we project $400,000. In the last couple of weeks, I will say we've had several emergency repairs and larger projects for the rehab program that come through. We may not have 400,000 when it comes down to it. We may have eaten through some of that already. But it allows us to continue the programs without having to wait for the next program year to start, so they kind of overlap.
Good, thank you.
So it's timing of deployment a lot. I have two questions. One is, what do you feel the greatest pressure on wishing an area where you wish you had more funds typically? What is that particular area?
Right now, I mean, the biggest thing is affordable housing, and we're going through so many changes. The market has changed. The prices have gone up, not only for sale, but for rent as well. And we do have a lot of resources. The state has recognized it, the federal government has recognized it, but I don't know that we'll ever catch up on the housing supply. So anything we can do to continue to provide more housing. Even market rate housing has an effect on low income housing as well, because the more housing out there, you know, you're eating up the people trying to get that housing, and it makes, if there's no supply, it makes the prices go up for everybody. So just as much development of affordable housing as we can get would be the thing that I would want to continue to do as much as we can.
That's an excellent point, because as long as you have demand, you have to have other housing too, in order to keep the pressure off of that.
Right, the low-income housing's become harder to, it's become more and more expensive because it's just not available.
Secondly, and this is really more of a technical question, how do you come up with the 68,000 for code enforcement?
That's a request based on a percentage of our funding that we use. So that amount changes based on the grant amount that we get. So we've been pretty consistent with Cdbg each year of about 900 to 975 in the amount that we've gotten. It went down a little bit this year, so we do have to make some adjustments to the public service grants and the funding we have available. But based on what they've utilized in the past, we look at the last couple of years and move it forward that way.
And is it representative of the initiative, do you think, or underfunded?
I think it's representative. I mean, you could always use more money for code enforcement, and that's another thing that, you know, you could probably never catch up on if you kept giving money to it. And I know some of the initiatives in the past have been demo and then utilizing that land to, some of it's in our infill land bank program. So there's plenty of ways to spend money through code enforcement as well.
Well, and that's really my point, is I would want us to, if there's more allocation available, make certain that's not a place we're being conservative, because it's a place we have to execute success.
And need, definitely. And we can have discussions with code enforcement if there's any other ways they feel like we can contribute to help them as well.
Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation, Mike. We're so happy to see you up here, and I know we get to see you along the sidelines. But just the nimbleness and the responsiveness of your department from my tenure, which is not that long, has just been phenomenal. I mean, from looking at all of the different programs that we have, how we utilize the funds. I remember when you're like, what good is rental assistance if we don't have any units to give them assistance on? And then the focus towards building affordable units, and even providing the architectural designs when there were builders who were scrambling to find something that they felt they could build affordably. So great job to your team, because certainly it is a national crisis, and we're trying to work as quickly as possible. I know the rates are going higher and the costs are going higher, so I felt like we've been on a race. Commissioner Reed's been talking about this. You better hurry and build now, So I did just have a couple of clarification questions. One is, first of all, if I could get the slides afterward, that'd be helpful. I'm trying to, in my mind, always kind of figure out the difference between the Cdbg and the home. So that was really good for me, but it'd be nice for me to kind of look over that a few more times to know which. Looks like both of them can do rehab, but only some can do new construction of multifamily, things like that. So the slides would be great. And then the mayor mentioned this about the code enforcement. So I know Peace has really made a new initiative to focus on mold and mildew concerns in these properties, particularly rental properties. So I was going to say similarly to the mayor, that if we do find that we can do something in code enforcement, that we are able to access homes and find mold or mildew, in a way that's, that we didn't do in the past, well, then we do want to make sure we have the funds to be able to execute on those findings. And so I know that's just kind of in the background, that we're trying to figure out how we could better assess homes and rental, because it's difficult to tell on your landlord and then get kicked out, things like that when there is health-inducing, mold and mildew in places. So that's kind of a priority that we've been contemplating. So just to keep in the back of your mind and working with code enforcement and with your nimbleness and your, best practices, how could we, if we find a better way to see that there's mold and mildew in homes or rental, then how do we also make sure we have the funding there so that we can take care of that at the same time? So that was the one thing. The other thing is, I was glad you clarified for Commissioner Walker, the home ARPA funds. So am I correct that this is additional $1,250,000 to the ones we just designated from our ARPA funds in our
Correct.
workshop?
There's an additional $1 million of ARPA funding.
Yep.
Okay,
That's
so exciting.
completely
More
separate.
money. I love when I hear there's more money, not less. Okay, so I think that is it. If I could get the slides, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely provide the slides.
Oh, and the last thing was, I remember when I was a little cranky because we weren't dispersing our ARPA funds quickly.
We can't remember any time.
During, well, it makes me, we have emergency funds and we're not spending them during the emergency, it makes me cranky. And I know that Talbot House needed that boiler, and I think it was y'all that came up with and the city management team came up with your funds covered that boiler, correct?
Yeah, we were able to assist with that.
Said thank you. So see, that's the nimbleness and the responsiveness that I so appreciate.
And the graciousness on your part. Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. On the infill land bank program, how many lots do we have currently in that? And it seems like there's a significant amount of activity happening with that. You mentioned another round of development.
Yeah, so for the first round of lots, we ended up having about 40 to 45 lots that we awarded to builders. We've closed on the land to, I think, 21 of those so far, and 19 of them actively have permits. I think the last 2 will shortly. And I've got, I think, 3 or 4 pending contracts for the land. One builder has 10 lots, so his will be coming online. He hasn't closed yet, but he's negotiating with his partners right now. So we should see houses just continue to be built. It is being hindered by the materials and the costs, so that slowed it down a little bit. But the idea is to just continue that momentum and have the next round available. The target date is July to bring the next list to the commission, and then subsequently have the program go out not too long after that.
Great work. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Not that it's required. Any comments from the audience on this?
It is required
It is
to open it up to the
required.
public.
It actually is required, okay.
Yep.
Sorry. I didn't think we had to move, so.
Yep.
Because it's required anyway. All right, seeing none, thank you very, very much, Mike, and keep up that great work, sir.
Yes, yes.
And that'll come back to the commission, as Mike said, July 18th for your approval of the final action plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to City Manager 5A.
Thank you, sir. And also good job, Mike. Great presentation. Appreciate that. It's good to see Mike and some different faces in front of the commission. I have one item for presentation this morning. It's regarding a renewal of the airport's liability insurance. The city's risk broker, Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, markets the city's airport liability insurance coverage for renewal. This insurance covers the liability of the city, which operates and provides facilities, as you know, at the airport, including airport owners and operators, hangar keepers, air traffic control services, maintenance, repair and service facilities, aircraft refuelers, and flying clubs and schools. The annual premium for the current 3-year policy is $39,905 per year, and that excludes the terrorism and war endorsements. The renewal premium that has now been quoted by the current insurance company, Ace Property Casualty Insurance Company, is $55,116.13 annually for a 3-year period. This will now include those endorsements for terrorism and war, and also a Florida Insurance Guarantee Association, which provides protection to policies that are issued by an insurance company that could become insolvent and would no longer be able to meet its obligations. So there's coverage for that included. It's recommended that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to renew the airport liability insurance coverage for the 3-year policy at the premium as stated with Ace Property and Casualty.
Motion approved.
There's a motion to approve by Commissioner McLeod and seconded by Commissioner Walker. All right, discussion on the motion. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. On Friday, I asked a question that maybe somebody would have an answer for me.
Yes, we have Joyce Diaz, our Risk and Purchasing Director, and also Chris Hollistrand, our Interim Airport Director, are both available for those questions.
We call this Diaz at the dais.
Good morning, Joyce Dias, Risk Management and Purchasing Director. Your question was with regard to the limits and the deductibles on the coverage. This is a liability policy, so there are various categories. But as far as the deductible, there is a zero deductible on this liability policy. And then depending on the category that the claim is involved in, we're anywhere from $100 million to $50 million. Some of that aggregate, $100 million on each occurrence limit. So there are varied.
Can you speak into the mic a little bit more, please? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I apologize. There's no deductible on this liability policy. And then on the limits, there are variable limits depending on the type of claim. So for example, under fire damage, any one fire, it's $250,000. On a personal injury, it's a $50 million. So it does vary based on the type of claim. Does that answer your question?
What is your concern?
That answered my question. Not enough. Okay.
Any other questions by commissioners? Any other by the audience? This is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Thank you very much. Anything else, sir?
That's all. Thank you.
All right. Bringing us back to our city attorney, 681.
We have one ordinance for first reading this morning, which will be read by title only, and will come back for a public hearing where the City Commission will take public comment at the next City Commission meeting that will be held on July 5th. This is proposed ordinance number 22-027, an ordinance relating to the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District, making findings, approving the inclusion of certain lands located within the city of Lakeland within the boundaries of the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
All right, thank you. That takes us to C1.
Yes, we have several affordable housing loan agreements for new construction projects for affordable housing, and Jared Simpson from our office will go through each of those items.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
The first one is a loan agreement with Impeccable Construction, and this is for the construction of a single-family detached home located at 836 Vermont Avenue, and then 3 single-family attached homes located at 834 Vermont Avenue. On January 13 of 2022, the Housing Division through the Purchasing Department issued 2 RFPs offering construction financing through the Infill Line of Credit Incentive Program. The first RFP offered $250,000 in SHIP funding for the development of single-family homes to serve households with incomes at 80% or below the area median income, which currently stands at $54,000 for a family of 4. The second RFP offered $300,000 of CRA funding available for construction of single-family homes within the Midtown CRA district, and to serve households with incomes up to 120% AMI, which currently stands at $81,000 for a family of 4. It was determined that all of the applicants and what they requested qualified for some level of funding between those 2 RFPs, with Impeccable requesting $250,000, and that would come from the Midtown funds, and then the 2 other items that we'll address in a second. But so under the terms of the agreement, the property here must be under contract for sale or rent to an affordable home buyer or renter within 18 months of the date of the award of closing. And with that, it's recommended that the commission approve this attached loan agreement with the associated mortgage and note with Impeccable Construction, Inc. for the construction and delivery of these single-family homes.
So motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Questions by Commissioner?
Thank you. There again, for the general public, for those that are seeking affordable housing, how would somebody, what would be a qualified buyer for this prop, and who would they contact if they wish to get in line, and if they have to go through a home course of some sort to qualify for that?
Going to pass that to Mike Smith.
Hello again, Mike Smith, City of Lakeland Housing Programs Manager. For the buyers that would be purchasing the homes in the program, we do have a down payment assistance program which they can utilize. That does have a course that's a part of the requirement, a buyer education course. They do not have to go through that program, but they would have to meet the income requirements, which would be 120% of their area median income would be a moderate income buyer. So for this particular CRA funded one, they would have to make at or below 120% of the area median income, and our staff would qualify them if they did not go through the down payment assistance program.
Can you give me an idea what that 120% number may be at this particular time?
So it's, I believe for a family of four right now, it can be up to 80,000.
Okay.
And it adjusts based on the number of people in the home. So it goes up, the more people in the home, it goes down for less people.
Would it be half that at a retired couple?
It goes down by about $6,000 to $7,000 as you take a person away or add a person. It goes up by about $6,000 or $7,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions by commissioners? Any other questions by the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Number two.
The next item is the same information is related to the RFP, and as I presented on the previous item, except for this is the loan agreement with Property Scholars Realty for the construction of a single-family detached home located at 1219 Renewal Parkway. And so with that, this would be funded by the SHIP funds, $100,000 for this particular project, and with that, approval is recommended.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussions or questions by the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Three.
And the final item for this trio here is this loan agreement with Lakeland Home Inspection Services Corporation for the construction of a single-family detached home located at 1319 West Hunter Street, and your approval is recommended.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or question by the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Thank you very much. We have no report from the finance director and nothing on utility. That brings us to C1.
Yes, we have one agreement with Permacast LLC for construction of a privacy wall at Bridgewater Substation. This is the proposed agreement with Permacast LLC for the Bridgewater Substation privacy wall that's located on North Road 33. The substation was construction and became operational in February of this year. Part of our land development code requires a landscape buffer to screen the Bridgewater substation from view from public right-of-way. Staff worked with the neighborhood, the Bridgewater neighborhood, as well as trying to coordinate the best means to try to provide this buffer that was most aesthetically pleasing and the determination was made to construct a privacy wall along State Road 33 that's approximately 685 feet in length and 8 feet in height. In March 2022, the purchasing department issued an invitation to bid and received a number of bid responses. While Permacast LLC was not the lowest bid, it was actually Waller Construction. Permacast LLC came in at a bid price of $123,610, and upon evaluation by city staff was selected as the most responsible bidder capable of providing the services in accordance with the city's bid specifications and the criteria for being evaluated as the most responsive bidder was based on a number of components, including the fact that Permacast was able to include in their bid photos of the proposed wall design and specific jobs completed, as well as a photo of the wall design depicting what would most closely match with the Bridgewater neighborhood entrance, which is included in your agenda packet as well. Waller's bid submittal didn't include specifics, just a brochure of multiple wall design options. As well, Permacast was able to commit to completing the project in a shorter time period. The bid submittal provided by Permacast also provided a detailed scope of work which addressed pricing for contingencies, also which Waller's bid submittal did not provide. Permacast also is proposing to do all of the work in-house, the engineering, the design, and Waller proposed subcontracting that work out to a company in Oviedo, Florida. So based upon those considerations, Permacast was selected to receive to award the bid to. Construction scheduled to begin in July 2022 and should take a 2-week period to complete. In addition to the $123,610 bid price, there's also a contingency built in of $15,120 that would address any additional issues with regard to collapsing soils. So the total estimated not to exceed work is $138,730. That is included in Lakeland Electric's FY22 budget as well.
Motion to approve?
So move. Second.
And second, okay. Discussion, and I'd like to kick it off. If you go to page 3 on this, and I should have asked this probably at the agenda study, but you'll see a picture of the wall, which is very nice. And this is very important because it's the entrance to Bridgewater as you go in. And of course, we talked about the fact that it was so important to the people in the neighborhood when we visited. But just looking at, in this particular picture, the absence of grading that's appropriate as well, I would assume this means that we will.
This, and Mr. Mayor, just to clarify too, this is just an example of what this would look like. This isn't the actual proposed
And I do know
product.
that,
Yep.
but it allowed me to utilize the fact that I would hope that we would have appropriate grading against this as part of this, what we're proposing in the sod that represents it, just so that it's a completed product without having to have additional.
Is there, will the city do any landscaping along that area as well?
I don't know if that's part of this particular bid, that's not something that what Permacast would do. I know Bobby Shields is here. I don't know if he can come up and address that, or if we have anyone else from Lakeland Electric.
Here, you need
Can you
to do
come
it,
up to the
Mike, Bobby,
microphone?
thanks. Just do an introduction of yourself, please.
What you get for
This is
showing
for
up.
all time.
You don't get by that easy.
I believe the landscaping is on behalf of the neighborhood. They already have landscaping up there, and they have their own irrigation system as well. And so they're just going to continue with that, and they'll be responsible for that part of it.
Sure. And you would expect them to be enthusiastic about it, you know?
Oh, yeah, they were. Yeah, the HOA meetings, they were very enthusiastic about it. They're super excited to have the wall coming soon.
Good.
And they had input as well in making sure that they were satisfied with the final product of
Great.
what Permacast would be providing.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Of course, again, I think this is important. It is a good-looking picture. Obviously, this is going to be one of the key entrances into the city, and hopefully we get that intersection figured out. But again, it'll be more sightly than just looking at it'd be a lot better than looking at a substation there as we come in.
Great. Any other questions? Holly, thank you for your work on this too, please.
Thank you, guys.
All right, any discussion or questions by the audience on it? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. The last business item of our meeting unanimously passes. That brings us to the audience portion of the meeting, and if you're an audience member, just state your name and address, please, and take the mic here at the center, and you have 5 minutes. Or less. 5 minutes. Or less.
Starting,
I really wanted to come up at
pastors, and
the end of the...
pastors automatically have a discounted 50%.
Okay. I really wanted to come up at the end of the last item on the agenda and say,
How ironic, the benefits of building a wall. Anyway, but I didn't say that.
Yeah, you didn't. That's good.
My name is John Freed, and here again, 7805 Fox Squirrel Circle in Lakeland, and I am a pastor in this community. Earlier in this meeting, a proclamation was made and given to another pastor of the community. I could not disagree with that pastor more, considering his view or stance on things. So it saddens me to see the city give such a proclamation as LGBTQ pride. The LGBTQ lifestyles and actions are nothing to be proud of. They're harmful to participants and to society. The lust of sexual perversion is insatiable, meaning that it cannot be satisfied. It grows with no end in mind. Lakeland has once again fallen into the deceptive trap of the LGBTQ agenda. And what seems like kind acknowledgement opens the doors and paves the way to outrageous, perverse celebrations in the streets. If you don't believe me, simply do a YouTube search for Gay Pride Parades 2022 and see what is taking place in what might be known as gay-friendly communities. The media would give us the impression that homosexuality is prevalent in our society, but national surveys indicate that less than 4% of the U.S. are LGBTQ. And you might ask then, why are you concerned? Well, there are incredible risks associated with the LGBTQ practices. There's an inherently greater risk of sexually transmitted disease, and research has clearly indicated that amongst the LGBTQ plus communities are also very high rates of promiscuity. This is a contributing factor to the high rates of disease, many of which are rare or even unknown to heterosexual population. Life expectancy is found to be 8 to 20 years less in gay and bisexual men. And there is a direct link between homosexuality and pedophilia. And although most homosexuals are not engaged in pedophilia, there is a disproportionately greater number of homosexuals among pedophiles, and the push to make pedophilia acceptable. There are significantly elevated rates of psychiatric illnesses, such as depression, suicide attempts, drug abuse in the LGBTQ plus community. The LGBTQ plus agenda is being pushed all over the nation, saturating television, internet advertising, and more. Gender dysphoria and sexual preference confusion is growing at an alarming rate amongst people under 25 years of age. And the sad thing to me is that the LGBTQ plus community generally celebrates these confusions because they are often needed to bring new people into the lifestyle. It's commonly stated that societal acceptance of these lifestyles would decrease the psychiatric illness within the community. Even if this were true, it would not decrease the health risks or pedophilia. So as a citizen having love and concern for all, I want to urge our city leadership and the residents to avoid the promotion of such unhealthy lifestyles, but rather to promote monogamous, healthy relationships within the confines of marriage.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name, sir.
Father Paul Arms. There is one law in the universe, God's law, called the moral law. The only reason there are others is to be in opposition to the moral law, such as the declared natural law. God pronounces blessings upon those who obey his law and cursing upon those that disobey, as found in the book of Deuteronomy. These blessings would be those of good crops and health to the people, but the cursings would be crop failure and disease. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a disgrace to any people, and the wicked strut about on every side when vileness is exalted among the sons of men. The LGBTQ plus culture is a culture of loneliness and lying. It has been told me by the same. A proclamation in support of this is not one of freedom, but of slavery and death, contrary again to the good desires of the Creator of mankind. In these days, what we need is a proclamation and reaffirmation of the author of life, God, and his design for mankind, marriage between those of the opposite sex, and the bringing forth of life through children conceived by that union. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.
Thank you very much. Please state your, please state your
Hello. My name is Carolyn Broderick. I live at 4572 Lakeland Harbor Loop, Lakeland, Florida. I just want to say today that I think that as a government official, sir, you have overstepped your boundaries. I am wondering, let's see, are we going, next, is a mayor going to acknowledge Beastology Month? Beastology is an action of a person having sexual behavior with an animal. Okay? Are we going to have Adultery Month? People have sexual behavior outside of marriage. What about Fornication Month? Okay? The American society has totally engaged that. That's like no big deal anymore. The conscience is seared because of the acceptance of fornication in our society. This agenda that you have proclaimed, you represent all the people. You are proclaiming through your office, an elected official, that sexual relations, man with a man and woman with a woman, is acceptable and should be celebrated. That is outside of a government official's. You should not have done that. And I propose today you strike that down because you are proclaiming the acceptance of a chosen sexual behavior. We're going to have Predator Month, Sexual Predator Month, Fornication Month, Adultery Month, Gay Pride Month. That is a chosen sexual behavior. You should not make any decision whether about anything sexual. That is not your place. And that's my opinion.
Please state your name, ma'am. Okay.
But I agree with everything the pastor and the lady before me. My name is Mildred Fagan. I live at 6468 Horizon Point, Lakeland, Florida. I'm tired of the deception that the Pride Month is spewing about, okay? Because if you want to be gay, America doesn't stop you. I'm so tired of people saying they don't have freedom of this and freedom of that. Yes, you do. You have a job. You have a career. There's a lot of things you can do. We don't stop you. But then you want to push the garbage down my throat and my family. And then I have to sit down and talk to my kids and tell them what the Word of God says. And what He says is that two men should not sleep with each other like you would with a man and a woman. Same for the woman. She shouldn't sleep with another woman the way you would sleep with a man. God put Adam to sleep in the Garden of Eden. And then He turned around and took a rib out of Adam, and He made a woman for him, not another man. If you want to flip it around, He didn't make another woman for the woman. He made Adam first, and He brought marriage into existing. And He said, Adam, name this. And Adam said, I will call her woman, for she came out of my side. Rib, men and women, we are together. And God said, be fruitful, multiply. But the thing is that I'm so tired of hearing how the gay people don't have the right, this and that. Man, you got more rights than I have. You took God out of school. You took the 10 Commandments out of the square. You took God's book out of school, and you're bringing in garbage in the school, and you're bringing the filth into the middle of the street where I don't even want to go downtown. Now, what I want to know from this group here, does that mean every month of June from this day forth will always be Pride Month, June Pride Month? Because you're going to have to answer to God. And the only reason why I came is because I want God to know that I, Mildred Pagan, who have been set free from sin. And I don't need to put my sin out here, but he set me free because I believed the lie that an ungodly minister didn't tell me the truth, that I was not made a certain way, okay? So that's what I'm sick about. I'm just sick about, we are living in the days of deception and Noah. I was driving down here and God just said, just let them know, you're living in the day of when Abraham, 3 angels came to see Abraham, and God was in the midst of it. And he said, should I keep from you what I'm going to do in Sodom and Gomorrah? Should I keep that from you, Abraham? And he said, no. So he told Abraham, started interceding. We got people in this community, we're interceding for y'all, for your soul. You're making a decision that touches my kids, my family, and everyone. And anyway, you're touching the souls. I have a cousin who just passed away. He probably went to hell because he was living that way. And he was a lawyer. He lived in the greatest thing, and nothing kept him. He could be a lawyer. He could be whatever he wanted to be. But he didn't want to change what God called an abomination. And when I got friends, I love my friends. I've got friends that are gay, and when they ask me, hey, Millie, am I going to... I tell them right off the bat, do you want me to tickle your ears or tell you the truth? Because the truth is you're going to hell if you don't change. I know. I was going straight to hell in 1989. I drank, I smoked, I did everything with my friends. They all loved me. All the gay people loved me. All the straight people loved me that were doing sin. But once I found Jesus Christ, they didn't want to have nothing to do with me. Why? Because the truth is we can't keep living the way we're living. We can't keep raising our fist at God and say we're going to live any way we want to, because we can't. And let me tell you, a lot of people that want to party this gay lifestyle, you're not around when your friend is sick with AIDS. I know, I was a CNA. I took care of 2 men that got AIDS and also a female that got AIDS. And I didn't see none of their buddies coming over cleaning them up when they were in their filth. But I'll tell you what, towards the end, God opened their hearts where they asked me, Millie, does God really send me to hell if I live this way? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, show me. And I took the Bible and I shared the truth to them. For God so loved the world, he gave him his only begotten son. His name is Jesus. He died for the straight people. He died for the gay people. He died for black, white, and Hispanic. And this BLM is trash too. That's hatred. I was full of prejudice because that's what happened to me when I went to school. I was called the N-word. I was called a spick. I was this and I was never good enough. But when I found Jesus in 1989, I found out he loves every one of us, but he don't want us to sin, and we need to stop buying that. And I'm really going to pray for you. I'm going to pray for everybody up here, because it's just like my friend said, you're making a decision, and I want God to know I'm not part of that. It's a great deception, and that's what the Lord said today. Look at our country. Look at the man that's running the White House. What a deception. Donald Trump should be at the White House. That's the truth. He won it. We cheated him out of it. And we're living in the days of deception. And I'm not drinking that cup with the cup of iniquity. You want to drink the cup of iniquity? I hope that on your deathbed you cry out to God for forgiveness. Because even 3 seconds before you go to hell, he can save you from going to hell. That's all I got to say. Then I hope this isn't every June. I hope this is not every month of June is going to be Pride Week, because every month of June of Pride, I'm coming up here and stop using my rainbow color. The rainbow color was a promise from God that he will never destroy our nation. It's going to be destroyed with fire, because the fire of iniquity is coming here.
Thank you.
Something fell out of her book.
Yeah, something dropped out of your Bible you may want to pick up.
I did.
Thank you.
Well, anyway, I still love you guys. I don't hate you, really, I don't.
We know.
That's for you. Can I just give you that, please?
Yes, ma'am, that would be great. Thank you.
Really, it's actually the 10 Commandments. Those are the 10 basic rules y'all took away from us.
Thank you.
We need to put it back in the center of the block of the street.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Amen.
Are there any other comments from the public?
Hello
again. I was not expecting to come again.
State your name, please.
I'm Bobby Shields. I would just have to say that I was completely unexpected that you did the proclamation for the LGBTQ, but I was very proud that you did. It showed, people probably wouldn't have expected that out of Lakeland. And the fact that you're showing public acceptance of people is a good move to the future, a good move moving forward. The people behind me, their religion is not applicable to everybody. Their thoughts are not applicable to everybody. Whatever your perception of life or love or whatever, that's your deal. And the fact that they don't feel like that they shouldn't be accepting of others is disgusting. And I just want to say they are the minority. They're the loudest minority, but they are the minority. And I mean, I had sisters who grew up here in Lakeland. I didn't grow up here, and whatever their thoughts were, horribly bullied throughout school because they're different than, thoughts like that were provoked on them, pushed on them, and it's just disgusting. So I just want to say thank you for your proclamation for their community, showing that they are allowed to be different. All right, it's not a celebration of a Pride Month. It's to show that they are allowed to be who they are. They don't have to hide from people like you guys. They're allowed to be who they want to be. So thank you for standing up for them.
Thank you.
Melinda Rinker, and I can tell already I'm going to get emotional on this. First of all, thank you for the proclamation. People are people, and we can love them no matter who and what they are. To say that just because you're gay, you're going to be, promoting pedophilia, it's not true. And I'm going to share something really, really personal right now. As a child, I was molested by a person in the church. And then I was told by the pastor, and I didn't realize I was coming to church today, by the way. I thought I was coming to a city commission meeting. And then I was told by the pastor that if I didn't forgive that person, that I was then also going to hell. So be it. Show some love for the people who are out there who need you. I don't go to church because of people like this who are hateful and cruel and mean to people who are different because they choose a different lifestyle. So thank you for that proclamation. But that was not originally what I was coming up here to say. Sorry. I wanted to say thank you to all of you and to the people in the city for the short-term rental workshop that you guys put on Friday. I spent numerous hours and collected, I printed out about 2 inches of a notebook worth of information. And Mayor, you responded to my email, and Philip, you called me, and Chad and Sarah, we talked in person, and Jared, poor Jared, spent like an hour and a half on the phone with me, and we discussed all levels of the short-term rental situation, and I realize that it can be a sensitive subject, but I can tell you that those of us who own short-term rentals in this city are doing our best to make them beautiful, to add to the community rather than take away. And, some of the records requests mentioned how, Dixieland being, a lot of it is long-term rentals, and it's slowly changing. And that, it's the neighborhood is up and coming now and turning around, and there are a few short-term rentals in there. But I can tell you that long-term rentals are not always taken care of. That owner-occupied properties are not always taken care of. And for those of us who have short-term rentals, if we want to keep our ratings up, we have to keep them beautiful and amazing and wonderful. And you know, my last set of guests were here for 8 days to go to the trampoline nationals. I had no idea we even had those in town. And it went on all last week, and they actually won one of the national, like the in-sync portion of it. The week before, I had people going to the United Methodist Convention, and they used to live in the neighborhood, and they were so ecstatic to be able to come back and be able to stay in a home that was like what they lived in. And so, you know, I understand the difficulties with regulations, and, you know, the whole, the regulations are regulated to the state right now. And I realize that there's not a whole lot of you know, appellate court decisions to give us the confidence that we could put regulations in place. I will tell you that I will work tirelessly with both neighbors and with short-term rental owners to ensure that we fit in appropriately. I just got added to the host leader team with Airbnb, and you know, I will do my best to ensure that we are as compliant as we can be. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Any other comments? Are there any other comments? Then I will make a comment. I highly respect the strong position taken today with respect to the biblical view that you wanted to provide, and to which I make no desire to compromise. And within that biblical view, which is Judeo-Christian ethic, which reflects Judeo-Christian ethic, our responsibility is to love unconditionally and to honor others. And so where there might be decisions made that are legally binding by the state of Florida, the United States, certainly within the laws that are passed, is the responsibility of this commission, which is not a church, but rather represents the citizens of the community, to recognize those citizens who may view their choices and freedoms differently than that biblical view. Each of us has the opportunity to decide how to put those values on and how to apply them within the world in which we live. And we as a nation have made same-sex marriage an option, and it is in the court system. And we as a commission need to uphold those citizens' rights. And so when when there's a proclamation made for a month, like the LGBT originally and LGBTQ plus today, as the month of June, which is chosen throughout not only our city but the nation as the month in which is, you know, what we hear referred to in newspaper and media as Gay Pride Month. That is because that's the month that's been chosen for that group of citizenry which have the right to take those positions to be able to celebrate that month. As a city, we have a responsibility to proclaim those things that are legally allowable in our city if requested by people. So there's nothing wrong with someone requesting that there would be some kind of a proclamation with respect to monogamy and to marriage. That could certainly be something that if you wanted to work to coordinate, you can bring together. As long as we are recognizing what is legally acceptable in terms of our system and upholds in courts, we then have a responsibility to take those positions and represent them. Not necessarily to proclaim them, but to recognize them. And it doesn't mean that we are violating what might be personally not our own value set and freedom choices that we make as individuals, but it does mean we honor everyone with respect to the legally given rights that we have in this city. Okay, any comments by commissioners?
Well, I warned you that I did have some comments.
Yes, you did.
Do you want me to go first or last?
That's right.
No, go first. That way we can see how much time we need to take.
Yes. So what we have left, right?
That's right.
Okay, well, I had the honor, like every year, as the liaison for Lakeland Electric, to go to the American Public Power Association's annual conference, and it was in Nashville, and I am also serving on the Policymaker Council, so I'll be going to DC in July to advocate on behalf of public power, so it's really important that I take notes and pay attention because there's a lot at stake at the national level with regard to climate legislation and with the new infrastructure bill. And so to be able to be abreast of those things and then to talk to our congressmen and women about those things to make sure we're front of mind when they're making decisions is important. And that's, you know, kind of my role here for the City Commission and for Lakeland Electric. So Cindy Clemens, our legislative and regulatory guru, of course, went and helped us be where we needed to be. Mike Beckham, our general manager, was there. And then also a new utility committee member, Kyle Vreeland, attended. So he was able to go to a lot of the sessions on just the responsibilities of a board and committee member, get up to speed on, you know, national public power, the difference between hydropower in, you know, Washington State and the West, and, you know, really kind of see the similarities of all public power and the benefits to the community, but also the differentials with regard to things like when you're talking about climate, us only having one renewable option right now, which is solar, versus the West that has hydro, wind, and solar. So I think it was a really good education for Kyle, and I hope he enjoyed himself. I have 4 points, and I will make them brief. The first one was kind of what I mentioned earlier, is this term once in a generational investment that was made several times at this conference, a once in a generational investment. And so I love that we are nonpartisan and we don't have to come to decisions by a R or a D or a platform position. But I think most of us on this commission feel like a fiscal responsible, you know, we have a fiscally responsible role, right? So whether you think that the government should be giving us billions of dollars at this time in our history or not, the billions are coming. And so what we do with those dollars, we need to make sure for Lakeland, Florida, we use them as wisely as possible for things that have a life cycle that's not disrupted by federal policy in the future, or investing in risky technology or things that would not do us well. For a long time, this should be generationally spent. And not wasted. Don't waste this moment. So this Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that's coming, we had several sessions on that, and really just the focus of make sure you have some shovel-ready projects, make sure you have a grants writer, make sure you are from every department thinking about how you could strategically utilize this. Made me think of things like our discussions about smart meters on the electric side. Well, they're kind of waiting a little bit on the water side to be able to really go forward with efficiencies on trucks and staffing and people going to do meter reading. If that was widespread adopted, that would also then address labor shortages and, you know, efficiencies, things that would, for the next couple decades. They had a demographer talk about the labor shortage. They were hoping for a baby boom during COVID. That didn't happen because it's not just that people don't want to work, we have fewer people, you know, coming into the ranks than we had in the millennial. The millennials are a larger population than the Gen Zers and then those following. So how do we find efficiencies to confront these that will be a problem in the next decade, 2 decades of having a labor shortage? So I would look to my colleagues, I would look to our city manager, I would look to our new innovation and strategy department with Emily Cologne and say, okay, if this money is coming, how strategic can we be? What have we heard in our budget hearings that we need, from body cameras with our police force to our smart trash cans that collect our trash and you know what's happened to them when they disappear. All of these things that we hear from every department, I think it's for us to synthesize this information and to be able to collaborate among the departments and as a city to make sure we are investing in things that we do have the best possible chance to make these legacy investments in this once-in-a-generational opportunity. So that's LE focused with regards to solar panel farms and doing P3s with private businesses who might want to use their land, you know, because they need credits to show that they're doing something green in their portfolio. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we could do, but it's going to take all of us kind of thinking, because there's 7 of us, and then there's how many, you know, 1,000+ city staff, and if everyone's thinking about that and putting their ideas forward, I think we could do something really special, or many things. So number 1 is that financial planning and thinking about that once-in-a-generational investment. Number 2 is obviously keeping up with climate and environmental policy. So APPA, their policy arm, that is their number 1. They've got their eye on that. And so certainly when you have a lot of momentum with lofty goals and time clocks ticking and money being given out to make things happen, you know, you have to go, oh my gosh, where are we in Florida? Differently than I said, like the West. But you have to keep eye on these grants that are going. So we have the first North American green hydrogen hub was LA. So LA High Deal, they decided we've got salt caverns we can store it in that are basically free. We have solar panels that produce extra energy, that those curtailments are difficult to deal with anyway because they can overwhelm the transmission lines. So with this extra production of solar, can we do electrolysis, produce the hydrogen, store it in the salt mines? And they're working collectively. They have more states to, you know, work with, an area to see how they, and so then they partner with the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy has billions of dollars, $8 billion just for hydrogen is coming. So if you have anything like with OUC, they have a small project with small solar array with the electrolysis working with the University of Central Florida that they're getting that free electrolyzer to do. You know, you can do small scale just to show that that's going to work, because everyone benefits if we show some new technology is actually working and scalable, because everyone in the business community and industry is looking to manufacture things with predictability that this is what we're choosing. That's kind of what happened in the solar. So, and there's a lot of misinformation with regard to solar is free, and you know, people don't even understand that solar doesn't make, in the sunshine state, we're really the partly cloudy state, and you know, we don't make solar during the rain clouds in the evening. So things like battery storage and all the different kinds of projects, if we could have even a pilot and not spend lots of extra money frivolously on a technology we're not sure about, but show scalability, then that is something that we should consider too. Not just our generation portfolio investment or transmission or things like that that we would normally be spending money on. So the other thing is, when you kind of segue into that climate and environmental policy, you can see that everyone wants infrastructure for EVs, right? Well, you know, I remember the first time the light bulb went on about, oh my gosh, like what about an evacuation? You know, at the time, when you think about what kind of chargers you're going to put in Florida and where are you going to place them, how long does it take to charge your EV if everyone's evacuating the state? I mean, gas lines are one thing, but sitting in a charger and competing for a 4-hour charge, I mean, that is not reasonable in Florida. So the kinds of EV infrastructure we want to invest in as a long peninsular state, you know, versus maybe someone else would, who has to evacuate for hurricanes, could be different. So, and really advocating collectively as at the state level to say, where would it overwhelm the grid? I mean, honestly, there's grid capacity issues, and if all of a sudden there's mass adoption on EVs and mass adoption on charging, then you're like, well, we planned that we need this many megawatts, and now we can't, you know, if that, so then you have to build new infrastructure on the grid to be able to facilitate the new EV charging infrastructure. So these are things that we have to really be a part of. We need to be at the table from the state level to see how these things, when you hear, oh, EV charging stations are coming and they're going to be coming soon, we need to kind of be at the table and having those conversations. Which leads me then to, if there's mass adoption, then certainly the supply chain issues that we've seen during COVID. Think about the lithium supply, think about the solar panel supply, not just because of the war in Russia or tariffs with China, but because of the actual products necessary to make these. And so that segues into the third thing, which is supply chain. And they had at the talk, the most popular talk topic and discussion. People actually filled the room and stayed after to ask this gentleman questions. He's Harvard Business School professor, but he's a world-renowned expert on global manufacturing and supply chain issues. So he actually at the end was like, I can't believe people are asking so many questions. I've never had so many people want to stay after a session. People were riveted because guess what our supply chain issue is in our industry with American Public Power?
Generators.
Not generators, close.
What?
No, not natural gas. Transformers.
Oh.
So transformers, right? You know what makes a transformer go out? Struck by lightning, storm, and then if you don't have a transformer on the ready, then you're just without electricity. And so he said there was a whole conversation facilitated around transformers, and this professor started to talk to us, and he gave this real complex math equation, but I've simplified it to the risk pooling strategy. So basically you take, if I want, and he uses toilet paper, he has a TED Talk. Everyone's short on toilet paper, so what are you gonna do? You're gonna all go get and hoard toilet paper. But then the people who really need the toilet paper don't have it, and you've got a whole garage full, right? So if you only think of yourself, you're gonna, and then when we really need it, we'll be out of it. So same thing with transformers. If each of our American Public Power utility only thinks of ourselves, and if we do it's called a safety stock formula. So if you think what I use, what I'd need, if I have a hurricane, this is how much safety stock I would need. Well, if everyone does their safety stock formula, and we're already short on transformers, whoever gets the order in first wins. And there will not be enough. And we don't have a crystal ball to predict where the storm's gonna hit. I mean, will it be wildfires? Will it be the tornado in the Midwest, or will it be a hurricane in Florida? Where will the disaster strike? And so his focus was, what they say in supply chain, mitigation strategies is that this risk pooling strategy is, instead of you doing what they do with toilet paper and everyone thinking for themselves, is you have to think collectively. Now, collectively, with us would be departmental, like let's all share our cleaning. When we had COVID, we all have to clean, right? But with a national umbrella industry organization like American Public Power, it could be that they could be in their mind considering where all the assets are, where all the transformers are. Do we have enough at large for our utility? Just like we always do when we send our linemen to help with, when people have storms, we share assets in that regard. So that was really the thing, like, you guys really need to think strategically. Don't go crazy and be like freaking out if you're not getting your transformers. Well, everyone's putting these orders in, and we know this in everything else that we see, supply chain issues in construction and all that. But it's really that it's, the onus is kind of us as a collective, whether it's Florida Municipal Electric Association or APPA, to say, where are these assets? If we're the one hit, will we share? Things like that. So I thought that was really something, hopefully we won't have a storm. You always pray for the best, but, to think about that in the back of your mind, that transformers are really a critical need, and electricity is a little different than even toilet paper, like with regard to everyone needing it. So, and then the last two things were just, just kind of fun, or things to celebrate. One was a small thing, and we are participating with this Monsters in Energy. And so it's a curriculum, and they had a big trade show, of course, at the conference, but this little educational, Lakeland Electric was a pilot for this educational program, and they have all the little monsters, and I think we've already seen it, with Ellie, that they're gonna take to schools and maybe in the Parks and Rec programs, and it just shows everyone, how electricity is produced, and then also how you can gain efficiencies, how to save electricity and those things. So that's kind of a fun thing that we were part of that pilot, and they were bragging on us for doing that. And then the last thing is something that I remember Ashley Troutman, the utility committee member who went last year with us, he was so impressed by our efforts with Light Up Navajo. And if you're not familiar, Light Up Navajo is something that the American Public Power Association, that's kind of their give back. And just like we pool linemen to help in a disaster recovery, they pool linemen from across the country to go and light up families who have never had electricity or running water. And so this summer, again, we were able to celebrate another 100+ families who now have electricity and can have running water because of this collective effort, and it's really philanthropic and it's really special. And so they have people from the Navajo Nation come and talk and celebrate and thank the organization, you know, for pooling those resources. So I was curious, and I didn't get to ask Mike Beckham, you know, I feel like we have sent, and Commissioner Walker, you may know, you're kind of been here longer, linemen to this project. I feel like we have sent donated linemen. Have we never donated?
Navajo?
Yeah.
To my knowledge, I have not heard that.
Okay, well, that'd be something if anyone's listening, or we could ask our next utility committee member. Have we ever been able to send some of our Lakeland Electric linemen to participate? So I guess you kind of donate your linemen to be able to do this, and just to, and they said the linemen, well, the whole APPA can go, just like with, and they said that the linemen are so profoundly impacted that what they do, we think they're heroes, but can you imagine how they feel when they've families have electricity and running water for the first time? So that was really long-winded, but it was a great conference, and I thank you for sending me, and thank you for being able to be the Lakeland Electric liaison.
We thank you for always coming back with an enthusiastic and full-throated report. So that's great. Any, Commissioner Walker?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, before we move on, Commissioner Madden, just for some clarification, we've got several different grant opportunities that are upcoming. We have some state level grants that I know there are some deadlines for application coming up in mid-July. Okay. But I'm just curious do you know if the grant opportunities you heard about, that sound like maybe they were more federal in nature, is it the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act?
Yes.
And the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant?
Yes, so the ARP, I mean, they were talking about ARPA funds too. I think we've already kind of, with Mike's, you know, lens, looked at that and, you know, realized that we can't really do a lot with the broadband and the things under the ARPA. It didn't seem like we had as much that we could work with regards to this. But the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is the one that's coming.
All right, good, thank you.
They're billions of dollars.
Thanks for asking that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes. Are we going down?
You go ahead.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just want to make sure. A couple of things only, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity. But again, I want to just thank staff for what we did for hosting Ridge League of Cities, what we call our annual time to host the Ridge League of Cities dinner on this past, was it Thursday night? Thursday night. And then also the staff, thank staff and city management for allowing the date to be changed, because the initial date had to be changed because of some situations I was dealing with. My travels with League of Cities, and I was out of place because I was in another place for League of Cities at the time the dinner should have been held or hosted by Lakeland. So the date had to be changed. And again, to my colleagues and those that were there, thank you for doing that. I think we had over 220 plus folk in attendance. Usually Lakeland we do see more, I think, in Lakeland. I think it's just something about coming to the big city of Lakeland where a lot of the other communities do not have a lot of the things that we have to offer with the amenities that we have in our city. And thankfully we do have that, and they can come enjoy those things while they're here in Lakeland. Thankfully, for my time as being your representative for that, I guess you call the League of Cities these last number of years it has been, I was able to receive, the Home Rule Hero Award again for the year 2022, getting through that legislative session, and I think I've received the awards probably since 2016.
And thank you for that.
And of course, it's not only myself, but it's all of us, because we have a legislative committee. Again, we do have a legislative committee that work with our lobbyists, Mr. Shep, to help support what we know is best for not only Lakeland, but again, other communities throughout the state, the 411 cities that we have. So that took place as well on that evening. So thank you again to those who were there. Thank you again to staff and all that made that particular evening a very successful one on this past Thursday evening. It's ironic, I think, when we think about here is the first year here in our country to celebrate Juneteenth, that we had a double whammy, I call it, because not only on that day of the first annual celebration of Juneteenth, as we know, it was a celebration to end slavery in our country. It just happened to be Galveston, Texas being the last place. It was the information got to, or the message went to tell them that slavery was ended by rights of the Emancipation Proclamation that President Lincoln did back in 2 years before. But certainly, I call it double whammy because not only was that date June 19th celebrated, but we know that also yesterday was Father's Day. So I thought, well, hey, we got a double whammy here, y'all. And celebrating Father's Day as well, along with June 19th being that particular day of commemoration. And I think, Mr. Mayor, that's it. All I have to want to share again about that. And thank you, Ms. Rinker, for being here about the short-term rental situation. And as I expressed it on Friday, and we had the workshop, it has been a hot-button discussion for the last probably 5 years I can recall during legislative session, and it's already been, told that we'll see that subject coming up before us again in the 23 legislative session coming up as well. So thank you for being here to represent that. And I would say I think we don't have the challenges I hear from other cities, but we know why. Again, I think it was mentioned by even Commissioner McLeod, as we were talking about it on Friday. We're not coastal. We don't see many folk want to go to those places because of what they have to offer versus coming to Lakeland. But even those that do use our facilities or use those particular places here in Lakeland, I think we have a better game plan on how things are going and how well it's going, and being supportive of that as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Music.
Yeah, I have a couple of things, and they're all completely different. And the first one is I think that when and I still say that I'm new to this as I'm trying to get in through the first year, but people will always see me. A lot of people saw me at church and kind of ask me how how it's going. They always ask. It's interesting because they always ask, "How do you like it?" Which I think is an interesting term. But I look at it and it's kind of a patting on the back when people realize that of the seven of us that sit up here, the reach that they have outside of the commission chamber, right? When we see the value that he has brought to the League of Cities. And not only that, but when you consider all of the people that are in there, and he was the president, right? I mean, that's the strength that brings to not only this commission, but extends out to the city. And I don't want to say bullet points, but the information that she brings back from anything that she attends is phenomenal. I always, during these meetings, I look over and I just try to gauge how long her yellow pad is. And that's always, and we say that in jest, but the thoroughness,
comprehensiveness
that she brings to anything that she does, and I always tell people that when they'll ask me about kind of the other commissioners, and I always have appreciated that. And just we have such experience and such diversity, both in background and experience, but also where we tether out to from here. So I don't know, that just always impresses me, and it does raise the bar for sure when we have those kind of things. So that was number one. Number two was just a question that I had on proclamations, because I'll be honest with you, it wasn't anything that I spent a tremendous amount thinking about, because it doesn't really come in front of me, right? It's when we get the agenda or we look at it in the study, we kind of go over it. I would like, whether we do it here or it's something that's sent out, however the best means is how the proclamation process works. What does, because I mean, what I did is I was hearing people, I actually went back through some agenda studies and I just started looking at some of the different ones that we've had, and it's amazingly diverse in the amount of proclamations that we had. But obviously some will at times be hot button, and so I just kind of wanted to understand that a little bit. And then the last thing that I had is so many, and what made me think about this was our workshop that we had on short-term rentals. When we consider so many things that come in front of us, some of the most difficult things that are for us are things that impact traffic, right? The mobility. And so I was talking to Public Works prior to that, and the amount of information that I got from them on our current roads, right? Where we're at, what we need to spend, how far behind we are, what money comes from the government. I would like to see if there is an appetite among the commission for us to have a workshop concerning roads. And I know that's a very broad topic, but when you look at our Public Works Department, from our Engineering Department, Ryan Lazenby and all the people, the knowledge that they have hasn't trickled down to me, and I would love to spend time in a room like we did with the short-term rentals, and just be able to pick their brain. And maybe workshop isn't the right word. That's just what I felt that maybe we needed, because I'm concerned when I drive down almost any of our roads except for the newer subdivisions, the amount of potholes, the amount of things, and that's just getting worse because the expense is going up to be able to fix all of these things, and our revenue is not there. So I'm just concerned, and I think that at some point there's going to be some decisions that are going to be made by this commission, whether it's the people sitting here or in the future, that relates to where does that money come from. So I would just like more of an education. I know I could do that individually, but just wondered if anybody on the commission had an interest in us getting together sometime in the future to do that.
Can I weigh in on 2 and 3?
Please.
Okay, so on number 2, on proclamations, the process is very, very simple. We have individuals who want to have proclamations contact EDME in our at the city office here, and EDME vets those proclamations based on a lot of different factors. So sometimes someone will call and say, I want a proclamation for my dad's birthday. Well, if their dad was 100 years old, we might do a proclamation for the dad's birthday, but we don't do things that are, going to be kind of more fine-tuned. We might do some recognitions of. When it comes to events or things that are more public, and or causes, not-for-profits that have worked on things for years and they have a certain day or a recognition of a disease or something like that, those are the kinds of things that we work in to the proclamation. So we're recognizing people for accomplishment, we're recognizing conditions and needs that need to have people's attention, and we're recognizing what would be communally already declared as occurring as the proclamation we did this morning was. Those proclamations are then reviewed very, very carefully for their content. And there isn't a proclamation that is ever read that I haven't reviewed. Okay, so it's extremely important to me that what those proclamations say isn't compromising in truth and isn't compromising in terms of the commission's position. You will notice there's a difference in proclamations that will say that, and our entire city commission, I'll make a proclamation, and then on behalf of the entire city commission. I don't always put that in every proclamation, because there can be some positions where there may be our entire city commission wouldn't have necessarily made that proclamation. That would be true of this morning's proclamation. There's a recognition with respect, and this is what's so important. We have a responsibility to honor everyone. And I think if there's any issue that is the baseline footing of this commission in our city and everything that we do, it's that. And so our proclamation view is, what do we do to honor everyone within the civil rights that exist in our nation? So that'd kind of be the overview of the proclamation. EDME is the entry point, and then we filter as necessary. With respect to roads, here would be my request that we take a look at this. So I think all of us share the desire to see roads attended to with greater support and plans for the future, because we don't like doing everything else that we're doing, recognizing we have this tidal wave of people continuing to move to Florida unabated, and knowing that it impacts us as a city, and that we're going to have to provide additional housing, and we're going to load roads that already are deficient. It's the reason the state made it so that you can't have that be one of the considerations in disallowing something, because the state recognizes that as well, and we have not done anything at a statewide or federal level on fuel taxes to change that.
Great.
I will comment, however, I drive all over this nation, and I have driven in all 50 states, and the roads in Florida are marvelous compared to many, many places. Now, that doesn't make an excuse that we don't, improve what we do, but man, it gets to be really awful in some places. I believe we will see, after midterm elections, a review of how we handle transportation in Polk County, and a workshop as a county to talk about what we might consider as future funding opportunities. And so, and there's some pretty significant changes that could occur from that financially, which probably are very, very desirable. But we ought to wait till we're past that, because that's not going to come up before that. We need to get through midterm elections and get all that behind us, and then we'll take a look at that as an effort. And I would be a strong proponent that we do so. So then we can, because short of talking about additional funding, it is like going, here's this pressure, here's this pressure. Lake Miriam is a perfect example. Whether or not the apartments went into Lake Miriam's a street we ought to address. And it's relatively short in length, and there's very feasible ways to handle it, but we need to get about it and do it without any other pressure for the housing, so that it makes it easier as we go along to handle the roads that we have. Commissioner Walker.
I was just going to comment on your latter part there, Mr. Mayor, because I think, what we've seen and for those of us, especially those of us that are part of the TPO, and we look at those situations that confront that planning aspect when it comes to roads, bridges, et cetera, for Polk County as a whole, and the growth of Polk County as we're expecting it to become, where we're pushing almost, 700,000 in about a year, 2030, something I think it is. It's supposed to be close to 1 million, in Polk County. So I know there's things already, things are in the pipeline, but again, like you said, I think it's going to be incumbent upon the timing of it and have the discussion when.
And some of that money needs to not be county, it needs to be city.
Yes.
And so.
And that was really
right.
kind of where
Yes.
I was heading. And I didn't have necessarily a timetable, so I just appreciate the and I know we talk about it, but just again for the public and everything else, just that I just want to keep talking about it, because we have, as you know, some amazing professionals on our side, but they're not here all the time, and we're not, so we've got to keep that communication
And you
open.
can't do anything without the money.
That's right.
No, you can't.
So.
Commissioner Madden.
Well, could we ask city manager with that point on the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act? I was, kind of focusing, because I came from Lakeland Electric, with that lens on, but, is there money in there that we could put towards a Lake Miriam Drive or a Wabash extension? Would that be something that whoever's looking into those funds or looking for grants, kind of thinks about some of our, pinch points here with our local road system that we're more in charge of building, like that Wabash extension or?
Yeah, I think we're going to likely need a workshop related to those grants. From the information that I have, guidance for those is not scheduled to come out until sometime this fall.
Okay.
So once we have a better understanding of what would apply and, what the timelines for expenditures are, and making sure, as you're aware, in other situations, like some of the ARPA funds, that we could meet those. We will need to have some discussions and, present some options that the grants could be applied to.
Okay.
So for everything that I can find it's fall. It'll be this fall before there's guidance that will
That'll
be.
after the midterm, so that'll
Be good anyway.
perfect. Okay.
Be good anyway. All right. Anything else, sir?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you answering that.
Commissioner.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. First of all, on Friday, I appreciate everyone that came to the short-term rental information, all the public response we got, and I think it was very informative. And I appreciate all the information that you gathered. I'm sure it's not going to go to waste. I hope you shared it with us. You did a tremendous amount of work to get a lot of information I didn't know. Of course, I'm going to reach out to the realtors as well to check out and see what they have going in the future.
Good.
Also, in reference to the road component, I would venture to say there's probably stuff that other counties are doing that our development group can learn from, or there's information that we can get from them in reference to a seminar or whatever, or workshop, that may be a way we can pass costs on to developers. And of course, as the talk is going on out there, I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but there's discussion countywide referendum for a 1-cent sales tax that would be for 12 years, that would go for $1.2 billion to generate money to fix our roads, of which this particular proposal, if I remember what George Lindsay said, that as opposed to just being brought out and sold as a certain, the city of Lakeland would get like $240 million. We could pick the projects that we wanted to do more so than what somebody else would do. And it's allocated by population and general revenue type stuff of what comes in. So that may be a point in the near future if it would come for referendum and it were to pass. Other than that, we have 4th of July coming up for long, and there's going to be some big fireworks and lots of festivities, and I hope everybody comes downtown and everybody's safe for the time being, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. If there are no other items, then we are adjourned. Thank you.